Hello, I took a last minute vision and try to cover as much as I can before my test. Okay, so the sun is my skeleton. Then I'll share about the brain for this video. Okay, so I'll first go through the nervous system. Our, our body has two nervous systems. One is the central nervous system, which is made up of the brain and the spinal cord. The brain is where it stores and interprets information, gives us our language, and helps us to learn and executes our commands. Then our spinal cord would be the message pipeline. So it gets the signals from our brain and it sends to all the other parts of our body. So the other system that is connected to the central nervous system will be the peripheral nervous system. So this peripheral nervous system has two systems under it, the autonomic system and the somatic system. Autonomic system means that it does all the processes autonomously, means without controls, involuntary, like our heartbeat, our organs, how our glands work. So these are all the automatic processes that happen in the background. Somatic system will be voluntary movement. So it will be like our skeletal muscular system that is based on voluntary control of movement. So under the somatic system, there are two pathways. One is the sensory pathway. The other one is the motor pathway. For the sensory pathway, that means it is a pathway where all our senses gather information to send to our brain. That that sensory pathway would have neurons called the affluent neurons. Affluent means that they are effective. They they receive information through sensing, whereas the other pathway for the motor would be efferent neurons. So they 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 are the ones that carry out the output from the central nervous system. So the nervous system will actually communicate with each other. Then the building blocks are actually neurons. So what are neurons? Neurons are the nerve cells, the smallest unit that does the communication amongst uh, one neuron cell to another neuron cell. So they pass down the information like a relay. Then these neurons are our nerve cells. They actually only transmit information one way only, not two ways. So it's let's say the brain, the central nervous system, wants to pass information to, let's say, the hand, then it will actually send information down one way. And if they want to go if they want to relay information back, another pathway back to the brain. So the nerve cells consists of different components as well. The nerves consist of dendrites. They are the ones that receive and transmit information to the cell body. So let's say this is the cell body, which is called the soma. Soma is the one that keeps the cell alive and is the decision maker for firing action potential. So it's got dendrites. Then these dendrites are the ones that will receive information from the nerve fibers of another nerve cell. Then the nerves will have axons. Axons are the component inside the nerves that transmit messages to other cells. So it moves messages away from the cell body. So cell body is something like the nucleus. Then this axon, a message pathway, has a protector, something like an electric cable. Electric cable. So inside the wiring, right, there's a plastic sheath. So this plastic sheath is known as the myelin sheath. They are the ones that provide a fatty insulation to protect the neural impulses inside. So protect the wire inside. Then if there's any degeneration of the myelin sheath, it will it will cause problems. Like in the case of multiple sclerosis, that it will cause slow communication to the muscles. Multiple sclerosis is what do you call that? Immune disorder. So it will cause the body to lose muscle control. Then, so neurons are the nerve cells, and neurons also have glia cells that actually support the neurons. So they are like the workers in the background that protect the the main important cells. So the glia cells, they actually hold, they nourish, they insulate, and they protect the neurons. Then for communication, there is actually communication within the neurons, between neurons, and reuptake. So what it means is that within neurons to neurons, um, within the neuron itself, action potential will travel down the axon, and this uh, message is an electrical message. Then between neuron and neuron, the information spread is a chemical message. So the between neurons and neurons, the neurotransmitter will actually pass on the message at a synapse. It's an interval. So when they send the chemical information over to the next neuron, it will alter the activity of the receiving neuron. Then in the third process called the reuptake, this is where excess neurotransmitter sent by the sending neuron that is not um, taken up by the receiving neuron, then this will be reabsorbed back by the sending neuron. Then there is a difference between neurotransmitter and hormones, which I will share later. So neurotransmitters have its different functions, and there are also malfunctions. So there are 6 neurotransmitters that are covered. The first one is called dopamine. Dopamine is a reward, like a reward system. So our brain generates dopamine that will either inhibit our actions or it excites us. So excitatory or inhibitory. So dopamine helps us with movement, learning, attention, and pleasure. So if we find something pleasurable, then the dopamine reward system will want us to repeat that activity so that we can enjoy that sensation again. So oversupply of dopamine, it will cause problems. It will cause schizophrenia. And undersupply of dopamine will cause Parkinson's disease and depression. Then and another neurotransmitter is called the serotonin. So serotonin it can be also excitatory or inhibitory. Serotonin helps us with sleep, mood, appetite, and anxiety. It will cause anxiety. So if we have undersupply of serotonin, we have problems sleeping, or we have eating disorder. We also can have depression. So it's about the balance. Then acetylcholine, ACH, also has dual functions, excitatory or inhibitory. So acetylcholine can help us with muscle action, arousal, attention, memory, and learning. So an oversupply of acetylcholine will cause muscle contraction and convulsions like spasm. And undersupply of acetylcholine can cause Alzheimer's disease. In Alzheimer's disease, it will I'll share about that later. So then norepinephrine is an excitatory neurotransmitter. So norepinephrine is also known as noradrenaline. It is different from adrenaline. Adrenaline is also known as epinephrine. So norepinephrine is a neurotransmitter, whereas adrenaline, also known as epinephrine, is a hormone. So norepinephrine acts to increase or maintain blood pressure, while adrenaline, epinephrine, is a hormone and has got more wide-ranging effects than norepinephrine, which is noradrenaline. But both play a role in our fight or flight response. Then the fifth neurotransmitter is GABA aminobutyric, also known as GABA. It has an inhibitory function. So it helps us with sleep and it also inhibits our movement. So for people who have undersupply of GABA, it can cause, they will have seizures and tremors and insomnia. So it's a nerve, important nerve neurotransmitter. Then the last neurotransmitter is endorphins. Endorphins is inhibitory. So it helps us with pain relief. So people who have got um, oversupply of endorphins will be insensitive to pain. So they cannot feel pain. Then an undersupply of endorphin means that we've got pain hypersensitivity, little bit already pain. So, and also undersupply of endorphin can have immunity problems. Okay, so moving on to drugs. There are two kinds of drugs that can affect our neurotransmitter level. Cocaine will block the reuptake of dopamine. What this means is that cocaine will cause dopamine to be active in the system longer so that so we'll enjoy that pleasure longer. And the other drug is called SSRI. It's used for depression. It blocks the reuptake of serotonin neurotransmitter, and this extra serotonin in our system will improve our mood. So that's two effects of the drugs. So in long distance communication, we have got the endocrine system to support the nervous system. So nervous system works very fast, and the effect takes place in seconds with how the nerves, the neurons passes information to each other electrically and chemically. Whereas on the other hand, endocrine system, they actually work through hormones. So they will send our endocrine system will actually send hormones to be in the blood, and then this will reach our brain, our organs, our cells. The effect is slower. Uh, yeah, but it is also longer. So slower and longer effect. Then for our we have glands in different parts produced by different parts of our body. The the master gland is actually the pituitary gland. It's produced in our brain. So pituitary gland produces growth hormones. So this will help us in the growth of our bones and muscles. And people who have got active growth hormone production will have unusual growth development. So, like for instance, let's say children have got excessive growth hormone produced, they will actually grow very fast compared to normal people. Then pineal gland is another gland in the brain. It produces melatonin. So this helps us with sleeping, uh, the sleep-wake cycle, and it also affects molting, like for animals, reproduction. Yeah. Then thyroid is produced by our thyroid gland. It helps us with metabolism and growth. If we have got issues with the thyroid gland, then our metabolic rate will be affected. So thyroid is around near the throat area. Adrenaline is produced by adrenals. They are located above our kidneys. Then kidneys around here back. Yeah. Then so this responsible for emergency response. Like it generally will help us to increase our heart rate, breathing, blood sugar level, and divert blood from our gut to our limbs when we need it. Pancreas produces insulin. So excess glucose will be converted into glycogen to store in our liver. And pancreas also produces glucagon. It is the one that converts glycogen in the liver to glucose so that we can use the energy. Then we have got the reproductive glands, the ovaries, which produce in ladies, which produce estrogen that helps in ovulation. And the testes in males that produces testosterone for for sexual functions. Then thymus, thymus is around here. Thymus produces thymosin that helps us with white blood cell production and maturation. Okay, moving on to the brain, there are brain mapping functions. So there are a few brain mapping functions. Lesioning studies is a very invasive study. It is done by deliberately damaging an animal's brain part so that the researchers can study its effects. So I find that very immoral. Okay, then so animals are used in studies when they find it not possible to do it on humans. So that's why they use animals. In the case of lesioning studies. Then in brain stimulation, there are two kinds. So brain stimulation means that it is an electrical stimulation to disrupt or enhance areas to study the behavior or the cognition of the brain. Cognition means mental processes of the brain. So there are two kinds of brain stimulation, invasive and non-invasive. Invasive deep brain stimulation is from the inside of the brain, where they do electric shock inside the brain. Then this is to treat Parkinson's, seizures, and chronic pain. A non-invasive brain stimulation will be transcranial magnetic stimulation. So this doesn't use electricity, uses magnetic field. So it's from outside the brain. So they use magnetic impulses. Then to treat PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, or depression. Then so mapping of the brain is done for different purposes. To map the structure of the brain, there are two ways. One is CT scan. CT scan uses X-ray. So they are slices that produce an image of the brain to see tumor, stroke damage, and it can also detect metal. Then MRI, magnetic resonance imaging, is also to study the structure. So this MRI uses magnetic fields and radio receivers. So they give a detailed and 3D imaging of the brain. Then to study the function of the brain, there are three kinds. One is the EEG. So this one is very cute. They put electric like a sponge on the head. So these are electrodes. Then you will put on the scalp to measure amplified electric waves. PET, on the other hand, will visually display the brain activity. So PET will put a radioactive glucose inside our body, and then it will trace that where the radioactive glucose goes. So it sees how the brain works. Then functional MRI, on the other hand, is different from MRI. Functional MRI will track blood oxygen levels. So this will study the brain's behavior. So if there's an increased oxygen level in the blood, there'll be increased brain function. So then they can study the brain's thoughts and behavior in this way. So our brain structure, moving on to brain structure, our brain is divided into hindbrain, midbrain, and forebrain. Our forebrain is the most highly developed one. And our forebrain, yeah. Then our hindbrain is the oldest and innermost brain brain function. The hindbrain does essential functions to maintain life. So in hindbrain, there are different structures. So like the cerebellum at the back part of the brain, it is our little brain. It helps us with movement and balance, some cognitive functions and procedural memory. So things like we automatically do without knowing, like tying a shoelace. Uh, that is the memory work of the cerebellum. Then there is reticular formation at the back part of the brain. So this this is for vision. So reticular formation is of the vision. It has nerve network from the hindbrain to the midbrain to the forebrain, helps us with arousal and attention. So when we want to be alert, it is due to the reticular formation. Then pons is somewhere here. It helps us with sleeping, waking, and dreaming. Yeah, so it's the sleep-wake cycle. Then medulla oblongata helps us with heartbeat, regulate our heartbeat and breathing. Okay, then now move on to midbrain. It connects the because midway connects the forebrain to the hindbrain. So it has got sensory and motor functions. Our forebrain, because it's in front, it is actually the produces our higher executive functions. So things like thinking and decision making, personality is all in the forebrain. So our forebrain is where our short-term memory is. Our long-term memory is due to our hippocampus, which I will share later. Okay, so our forebrain consists of the limbic system and cerebellum. Limbic system will be things like our emotions, motivation, memory, and learning, whereas cerebrum will be our sensory, motor, and cognitive processes. The cerebrum will consist of the cerebral hemispheres and cerebral cortex. Okay, so for limbic system, it consists of hypothalamus underneath it. Then it has got an amygdala that are connected by hippocampus and then it goes into the cingulate cortex. So now I'll explain what they do. Okay, so the thalamus in the so this limbic system is all in our forebrain. Okay, so this thalamus is like a post office. Think of it like a SingPost. So they are relay stations. So they get all the information from the different senses and then they relay it to different parts of the brain to take care of the job. Then let's say it's a vision job, they send it to the vision part of the brain to do the processing. And hearing also sent to the ear, the part of the brain that does the processing of sound. Yeah. And so on, so forth for touch and taste. So they are the sorting people. Then underneath the thalamus is the hypothalamus. They this regulates our survival needs. So like fear, thirst, urine urge, sleep, aggression, emotions. This is the job of the hypothalamus. Amygdala uh, regulates our emotions and stimulates arousal. So fear is stored in the amygdala. So the amygdala provides an initial response to sensory information. So in one study where in monkeys the amygdala is removed, the monkeys have no reaction, no fear. Yeah. So this amygdala influences our motivation and interprets non-verbal emotional expressions. Okay, now move on to hippocampus. It forms long-term memories. So this is the amygdala, this is the hippocampus. So it helps us with learning and gives us the ability to compare sensory information to expectations. So there was one famous patient, his hippocampus was surgically removed. Then he couldn't form long-term memories. He couldn't, no, cannot remember things. So very fast forget already. So then they found that hippocampus helps with forming memory, storing memory in the long term. Mm. Then the cingulate cortex influences our emotions and cognitive processing. So actually a lot of our forebrain handles the emotion compartment. Okay, then now I'll move on to the cerebrum. The cerebrum has got the frontal lobe, the parietal lobe somewhere in the middle, the occipital lobe is at the back, and temporal lobes, our temples, is at the side of our brain, temporal lobes. So our brain is like a walnut. So I especially bought walnut. It has got left and right hemispheres. So they are connected by the corpus callosum. The left part of our brain controls the right side of our body, and the left side of the brain controls the right side of our body. The in the cerebral cortex, the outer layer of the cerebrum is called the gray matter, and then the inside is the white matter. The gray matter, the outside, it covers the cerebral hemispheres and is responsible for higher mental functions. White matter will be comprising of more of the cell body of the neurons. Yeah, I'll study that in neurophysiology today and I'll share with you later. Then the cerebral cortex, right, has got the frontal lobe, which does the complex decision making, planning, short-term memory, personality, social judgment, language, and controls our emotions. Then the temporal lobes of ears are it does it handles hearing. So they are the primary auditory cortex. So it also does auditory association, uh, and it is where the Wernicke's area is. So Wernicke's area is on the left temporal lobe. The Wernicke's area does handles the meaning of words. So if, for example, let's say someone had a brain damage that affected the Wernicke area, let's say it's me, and then I say, pass me the toilet, I'm hungry. So that means that my 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 Wernicke area is affected because I don't understand the meaning of words. Oh yeah, then for frontal cortex, right, that is a um they have motor cortex and broadcast area. So broadcast area is for speech production. It is on the front left lobe of the brain. So when our speech is affected, that means our broadcast area is impaired. Okay, then move on to parietal lobe. It receives sensory information, input from the skin, somatic sensory cortex. So it gives us information on touch, temperature, and body position. Occipital lobe, on the other hand, at the back, receives visual information from the eyes. So they are primary visual cortex. So why is so? It's because our eyeballs are in front. Then actually it forms when the light passes through our eyes, image is formed at the retina, is at the back of the head. So then our brain inverts. So when it sends to the back of the head, it's inverted, our brain will re-invert it back again to process. So that is where the visual uh, cortex that handles what we see. So for brains are two hemispheres, the left and the right. The left, the left is for our right side of our body. So it's the logical processing. So it controls the right hand, the right limbs. It spoken, written, maths calculation, logical thought, details and reading is all under the left brain. So it's the logical brain. Whereas the right brain is more like a creative brain. It controls our left hand. So things like non-verbal, visual spatial perception, music and artistic processing, like drawing, dancing, um, emotional thought and recognition, seeing the big picture, pattern recognition, face recognition is all under the right brain, the creative brain. Okay. That plasticity is a term that explains the brain's ability to adapt and learn new things. Then consciousness is due to action potential communication in the neurons that gives us perception, memory, and experience in awareness. So it is different from unconscious. Okay, so in consciousness, there are in our conscious sphere, we have two modes of processing. One is dual processing, the other is parallel processing. What's the difference? In dual processing, right, our body will simultaneously process information on separate conscious and unconscious track. So, for example, let's say I'm studying, which is a conscious activity, and I'm also listening to music in the background, which I don't need to process that. So it's just playing silently, like let's say I'm playing symphony station. So that will be my unconscious track listening to it while I'm studying. So this is dual processing. Both at the same time, one the studying, the conscious one I'm aware of what I'm doing, and the unconscious one is just enters into my brain unconsciously, uh, without me knowing or acting on it. Whereas in parallel processing is different. It is where we process many aspects of the problem simultaneously. So let's say I'm in a party where a cocktail party where there are a lot of people, a lot of things happening in the background, a lot of people talking, and then there maybe, for example, there are waiters and waitresses serving food, maybe children crying, yeah, different things happening. There's music playing, then there's a light display performance. So in in a situation where there are many things happening, this is parallel processing of all the different activities that's happening at the same time. So because so many things are happening, our brain cannot take in everything. We will have selective attention. So we'll consciously be aware of a particular stimulus. So that's the difference between dual processing and parallel processing. Then sleep is different from unconsciousness. Sleep is where we have periodic loss of consciousness. It's dictated by our circadian rhythm for sleep. Whereas unconscious means a person is in coma or a person is under anesthesia, it's like knocked out. So it's different. The the hypothalamus has a suprachiasmatic nucleus, suprachiasmatic nucleus. So this suprachiasmatic nucleus of the hypothalamus produces two neurotransmitters. Melatonin is no, produces one hormone called melatonin produced by the pineal gland, and it produces a neurotransmitter, serotonin. So melatonin is to help us with sleep. So the darker it is, the less light there is, we will sleep better. In the neurotransmitter serotonin, it promotes wakefulness, and it makes us less able to fall asleep. So sleeping has, okay, so maybe I will share about sleep in the next video. Thank you for listening.